if you have the sound turned down, all it does is record directly what you streamed. So if your stream didn't have sound, your recording doesn't have sound.
I just assumed that the recording was separate from what's being streamed.
It's exactly the same. Jesus, will you go shut that door, please? I'll do it. Moscow! Hey folks, welcome to Let's Play Games West Virginia. I'm Kevin, and this is Adit, West Virginia. That's not the normal opening line, but I was on autopilot there for a minute. So welcome to episode 1, the Toothless Wonder recap. So just last week maybe you caught our stream where we started streaming Changeling the Dreaming 20th Anniversary Edition. I wanted to just do a quick little recap and kind of talk about that stream, talk about the game, and move on from there. So in the first season, the first episode, we basically had a case where the players had to help the local knocker, who is a chimerical smith, create a wondrous item for a noble client. It was a little bit strange. They were a little bit put off, but someone had broken into the knocker's store from rust till pawn and stolen the supplies he needed, which turned out to be human teeth. There was a caveat. So in Changeling, there's really no moral constraints. So vampires have to manage their humanity, werewolves have to manage rage, Wraith is all about moral questions, but Changeling doesn't really have that. There's no morality to the imagination of the dreaming. They really only have to manage their excitement, their glamour, their wonder, and that can happen through a variety of ways, some of which are very morally gray or totally morally black. So there really is no moral component of the game. So I wanted to give the players restriction in that they couldn't get caught, either by mundane authorities or by Changeling Fey authorities. So, but they needed to get these teeth back. Now, they could either get the teeth that were stolen from the knocker, or they could get new teeth that would help him create this item. So they didn't really know what they were working for. They just knew they needed to help this guy, and they needed to get teeth. So I'd come up with 8 different ways that they might go about legitimately collecting human teeth. And that might be through theft or trade of either dentist's office or morgues or funeral homes. They could rob a grave. They could. I had envisioned them actually pretending to be a tooth fairy at the Added Home for Widows and Orphans, which is the central kind of pillar location for the game, and a few others. The players came up actually with most of the same ideas that I did, which was interesting, with some tweaks. I had envisioned them going to the home as a tooth fairy, like lifting up pillows and looking for teeth. Instead, they decided to impersonate the tooth fairy and shake down the people who were running it after enchanting them, basically like, where are all the teeth you were supposed to collect for us? So that was kind of a fun twist that I didn't expect, and it wasn't as lucrative as they thought it could have been, but it was definitely a fun scene for the game. On top of that, they went to a dentist's office. That proved a little bit difficult. The social interaction didn't quite go their way, but they did end up with a sufficient supply of teeth kind of stolen from the biohazard and tissue collection bins. On top of that, they got in a fight with a group of red caps. They had to acquire one red cap tooth in addition to the human teeth. And that actually, I gave him a 10% chance for each hit to remove teeth because the player was using a mace and he was like specifically aiming at their mouths. I think I actually calculated that incorrectly and it was giving them a 1% chance, but it worked out. They actually ended up getting it, and so it wasn't a big deal. And they passed their perception checks to notice that the tooth had gone, careening across the room. After they had collected that, they were still short, and they decided to basically go exhume a freshly dug grave. This was a time-constrained portion of the mission where I'd given them, like, I'm going to call them turns, but they weren't really turns because they're not combat rounds, but like 5 major divisions of the scene or major decisions that the players would make. So every time they would make a large series of work, like a roll to dig, that would check off as 1. One of the players decided they weren't going to help. It was more actually in character for them to kind of supervise and try to raise morale, which was not as effective as they wanted to be. So they didn't climb into the grave to help with the digging. So they actually got a chance to make a perception roll when it took greater than 5 of these turns for them to exhume the grave, partly because the third player wasn't helping. If the third player had helped, it actually would have been fast enough. So someone happened to be walking by and saw the activity in a cemetery, and there's basically no place in the U.S. where you can like wander, be seen digging in a cemetery and not elicit some action. So the player failed that perception check. So of course, since I asked for a perception check, they knew something was up. So another player tried to roll, and it's like, that roll wasn't for you. But they knew the jig was up, and so maybe a little bit of metagaming occurred, and they started moving more quickly to get that done. As a result, they didn't fill in the grave, and they just pieced out. So they made it out in enough time not to actually interact with law enforcement when they arrived on the scene, but they actually passed them on the way back to town. So they very nearly got caught, which would have been a failure for the mission. There were 2 methods of failure: 1, getting caught, and 2, not getting at least 9 teeth. There were 3 tiers of success: 9 or more, 16 or more, or 20 or more. The players ended up with 26 teeth, I think, and so that was the highest tier of success for the mission. So if they failed, and that was it. Unless they got caught, then that would have spurned off a whole another series of probably sessions. If they got 9, they would help complete the item, and it would be given to the noble, and that would be the end of that particular part of the story. If they got 16, they would complete the item. Something would happen with the noble, who would not take the item, but Brazier, the knocker smith, would keep the item but lend it out to the players occasionally if they needed it. And if they got greater than 20, they would actually get to keep that item permanently. And that's what happened. So after the session was completed, they created a pocket maw, which are basically giant shears with teeth affixed to the blade that will cut through any item presented to it that the shears are wide enough to accept. So that was a combination of the human teeth and the red cap teeth, and I had an image that I'd found actually online that kind of spurred this idea, so sent that to them so they can kind of collect that item. I wanted to give each of the players a particular item in the game at start. So if they purchased treasure, I just tweaked it, made it a little bit more powerful. If they didn't, we'll sort of do this narratively and work with them to give them something neat at the start of the game. It went really well. I think the players had fun. I had fun running the game. I put quite a bit of planning into it ahead of time, so I was able to answer almost all of the questions with information I already knew. There were some things that, of course, as happens in every game, you have to come up with on the fly, but those were not too many, so I felt pretty comfortable running the game. One of my players chose a merit, which is called Common Sense. It's designed for new players. Since this group and I haven't played together in a long time, it's like my middle school role-playing group that I first learned to play 2nd edition AD&D with, but I haven't played with in a long time, and we're playing a new system of Changeling for all of us. We are kind of new players in that respect. So my one player chose Common Sense, and since it was the first session, the way that merit works is it allows you to basically, the ST gives you a hint if you're going to do something dumb or something that you should know better about. Since it was the first session and we were getting things rolling, I treated that pretty literally, like, are you sure you want to do that? Or, oh, it might occur to you to do this, or it would occur to you not to do that. And I would give specific results. As the game progresses and the players get more familiar with the setting that I've created and the rules, it's going to become there's a tickle at the back of your neck, or maybe a hair stands on end, and it's going to become less specific. So that merit, I'm going to shape how it influences the game, but it definitely has been helpful, especially as we get our feet wet in this campaign. So now the players have started collecting their wondrous items. They've kind of dabbled in the town a little bit. There's going to be some blowback for not being able to totally avoid scrutiny from mundane authorities. So the system is the game we're playing is basically every 2 weeks, every other week, and I try to send something in between. So there was a newspaper article about the exhumed grave that came out in the Adit Herald that they all got emailed up by the next Wednesday. And so they kind of know that some things are changing, and I want to have this idea of like continuity of time between game sessions, that it's not like a room that when you leave, everyone's sitting there and you leave it and turn the light off and they're just waiting for you to come back and turn it back on. Stuff is going to happen while they're gone, and time is going to pass. And as much as they're planning on achieving their goals, the NPCs have their own goals, which are entirely separate. It may have nothing to do with the characters, and those are moving forward as well. So if something doesn't happen in a suitable time span, well, it may be more difficult by the time they actually get to it. And so I wanted to connect the game, since every 2 weeks is just long enough to kind of fall out of character a bit, to connect those sessions with little things like that. And I like producing those items for games that I run, whether it's like spending some time with GIMP or Photoshop and producing a photograph of a scene, or finding the perfect picture to represent an NPC. Or producing a newspaper article for something that the players did that got too much attention. I think those are fun parts of the game, and I like making them, and I like doing that for the game. So that's something that I'm continuing with this game. So this was the first session. It went really well. Everyone had fun. They hit the 3rd tier of success. There wasn't any critical failure. There was just enough failure to introduce some drama and a little bit of danger for them, and to start to connect the episodes as we go on. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's been a good game, and we're going to get ready to play our second game here before too long. If you missed the first stream, which was, would have been a bummer, luckily it is backed up on YouTube. So if you head over to YouTube, LPGWV_Kevin, and you can find the Changeling games there. If you just search C20 Adit, ADIT, which is the fictional town in West Virginia where the players are playing, it can come up there. Since that's just our little game there, it's top of the list when you search C20 Adit, West Virginia. And yeah, so join us in Adit. It's a small fictional town in north central West Virginia, Harrison County, just off of I-79 a few miles. If you're familiar with Jane Lou, it's not too far from there. It's a town of about 5,000 people, and it happens to be a changeling hotspot. It is the site of the first well west of the Alleghenies, and that really exemplifies the hope of settlers and anyone who was headed west. So that's kind of the tenor of the game. So welcome to Adit, West Virginia. This is Let's Play Games West Virginia. We have something going on every night of the week. You can tune back in. Session 2 should be out by sometime, not this coming weekend, but the next. And you can tune in every night of the week, including Poke Mondays on Mondays, Survival Horror on Wednesdays, Retro on the weekend, and we have Andy specials on Tuesday and Friday. So thanks for tuning in to Let's Play Games West Virginia. I'm Kevin, and we will see you soon. Thanks.